From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. I want to talk a little public health for a minute and how it is distinct from personal health. I think this is a distinction that too many people ignore or don't understand. Personal health, well, that's you and your doctor and your diet and your exercise, and it's you taking care of you. Public health is a whole nother ballgame. It's about protecting all of us. It's got a whole different and distinct set of conditions, of requirements. And when you confuse the two, when you think of public health in terms of private personal health decisions, you screw everything up. And the headlines recently have really got me thinking about this. We've got headlines every day about RFK Jr.'s HHS and its closely related agency, the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, which, as you know, is headed now by Lee Zeldin, who is the bizarro director of EPA. He's there to protect business interests over the environment. And they're weakening hundreds of chemical regulations, putting people at risk. The Integrated Risk Information System, IRIS, it's a human health assessment program that evaluates information on the health effects of environmental contaminants, providing the scientific foundation for EPA regulatory decisions and chemical regulations. It's being bulldozed. They're rolling back rules about toxic gas, pushing for these data centers that nobody wants, relaxing regulations on weed killer. The EPA's authority to protect public health is in jeopardy to the extent they even care about that anymore. Lee Zeldin is gutting the EPA's budget, transforming its mission. The EPA is just a disaster at this point. Public health. Which brings us, of course, to RFK Jr. and HHS, doing exactly what we all knew he would do, sabotaging vaccines with bogus research on safety and efficacy by people with an agenda, putting an end to all vaccine recommendations and promotion, resignations, firings, declaring a virtual war on science, on scientists. And now Marty Makary fired as FDA commissioner because he wasn't fast and loose enough with the Orange Menace's preferred industries. He wasn't extreme enough for the anti-abortion crowd. The CDC, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, also without a director as we speak. No Surgeon General. Nominees keep getting named and dropped and named again. Just set them up and knock them down. Look for the next Fox News contributor with their own line of supplements to push. ProPublica had a story recently about vitamin K, which is an essential shot given to newborns. And because of all this vaccine suspicion pushed by RFK, many parents are opting out of the vitamin K shot. And as a result, hundreds of children are dying every year from spontaneous bleeding in the brain, a common result of vitamin K deficiency. And just when we're getting these headlines about virus-laden cruise ships, we are reminded that RFK Jr. gutted the CDC's entire vessel sanitation program last year, firing every inspector and epidemiologist. These are the responsibilities of those working in public health. But RFK and his acolytes don't get it. Listen to him speak on almost any on every topic, every time he speaks. He always frames it as personal health. He doesn't seem to understand the very concept of public health. Personal individual health. That's you and your body. It's checkups with your doctor. It's what you eat. It's your diet. It's your exercise. It's your self-care. Maybe you read self-help books, or you have a fitness app. There's lots of information for individuals interested in their personal health. Fine. It's all fantastic. Knock yourself out. It's not public health. That's public hospitals, public universities, and institutions. It's research. It's the dissemination of information to the public, to doctors, to researchers. It's public safety. It's food inspection. It's drug testing and approval. It's vaccine distribution. It's vaccine promotion. It's instituting regulations on emissions, water and air pollution, on chemicals, in food, drugs, in manufacturing. And these are just off the top of my head because it's massive. There's so much more I'm sure you could add to the world of public health. And my point is, and I think we really learned this during COVID, some people, including RFK, who's a pretty important person in this conversation, some people just do not seem to understand the distinction between personal health and public health. They think about them as the same. I mentioned Bill Maher. Again, he's an easy example, but there were many others during COVID. Well, only sick people and old people and fat people die from COVID, so I guess the answer is don't be sick or fat. Old people, that's just the breaks. Bye. Well, of course it's true. If you have a weakened immune system because you're unhealthy, because you're obese, because you don't take care of yourself, you're more likely, statistically, you're more likely to contract COVID. Of course it's true. Duh. We should eat right. We should get exercise. We shouldn't smoke and drink to excess. All of that, of course. But just to say, well, just do that. You can handle it. You're on your own. Good luck. Ignoring the fact that hundreds of billions of dollars are spent each year to sell us poison. Soft drinks, fast food, ultra-processed food, empty calories. They sell us a sedentary lifestyle with the phones and the games and the movies and the Netflix and the. Why do you think the obesity rate in the U.S. has quadrupled since the 1970s? Because suddenly we all got stupid? Money. We've been sold a bill of goods. We've been hoodwinked. We've been bamboozled. So what's the answer? To scold people? To blame them for not being stronger? To do an inspirational video with Kid Rock about spinning and push-ups and hot tubs and whole milk? RFK himself has said out loud several times, I've heard him, that he doesn't want to pass laws. He doesn't want to regulate anything. He just wants to get good information to the public, and then they can make their own decisions. And some of what he says is very good. I agree with it. The dangers of ultra-processed food, additives, etc. But then again, some of it is bogus because he is so far out of his league. He reminds me of an old girlfriend I had way back in the day. She was just certain about everything. Oh, she'd jump on every fad. She'd be vegan for a while, and then she'd jump on like a Jordan Peterson all-meat diet, and she'd be just as enthusiastic about everything she tried. She would read one article in one magazine and just be convinced. By the way, if you're an old girlfriend of mine listening to this podcast, I can 100% guarantee that I'm not talking about you. Okay, so don't worry. I guarantee you there's no possible way that the woman I'm talking about is listening to this podcast. She does not listen to me. Okay, so it's not you. But there's a whole vast army of people like this who are just so sure of themselves and their own quote-unquote research. And so from RFK, you get these wild theories about sperm counts and vaccines and raw milk and fluoride and autism and Alzheimer's and on and on and on. Turns out the sperm thing is true. The sperm count cut in half over the last few decades. He got that one right. But people don't trust him because most of what he says is only half true or often totally false or just crazy. And all of it spouted by an amateur. And even if he was right about everything, just spot on, which he's not, but just for a second, suppose he was. No rules? No regulation? No laws? Just information? That's all you want to provide the American people? Do you know the level of positive messaging it would take to compete with the hundreds of billions of dollars spent on poisoning us? Well, hundreds of billions of dollars, I guess. And even then, you just break even. No, it's not just messaging. It's understanding your responsibility and the very nature of public health itself. It's not just individuals making their own decisions. The Department of Health and Human Services is a massive job. It's got 21 different agencies, including Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Food and Drug Administration, a massive undertaking, the Strategic Preparedness and Response Administration for things like emergencies, pandemics. To think of public health in the same terms, the same parameter you think about personal health, is just stupid. It's irresponsible. It's ridiculous. It's deadly. RFK and his merry band of idiots are deadly dangerous. We can only hope that the actual scientists and researchers remaining at HHS after the mass firings, we have to hope that they can hold the fort until sane people can take over again. RFK Jr. was chosen by the Orange Menace because he brought the votes he wanted for the election. He was confirmed by Senate repugnants because they are bootlickers, and he has hand-selected for key roles in the various agencies a menagerie of fellow kooks and cranks. And they are doing incredible damage to the institutions. Now, for all the criticism of big government and red tape and the Rube Goldberging of government, I myself partake in much of that criticism. But this is what the American public sector has done very well. Perhaps it's what it does best. Science generally, but especially health science and research from public universities and institutes like NIH and FDA. Does money corrupt? Yes. Do politics corrupt? Yes. This is one of the things that RFK gets right in his rhetoric. One of the areas where I agree. But he's broken that promise already by 180 degrees of somehow cleaning up the system. He's just changed the cast of characters. You can argue that it's worse than it was, because now he's implemented his own politics. So many of his appointees and advisors with their own financial interests, to the point of corruption. It's just got a new flavor. Now it's supplements and wellness BS from a whole new crop of snake oil salesmen. And the main ingredient of their sales pitch is to not trust the experts and to, quote, do your own research. Well, it's not do your own research amateur hour, backed by the Bill Maher's of the world. Again, he's just an easy example, but there's millions of them. The whole Make America Healthy Again, MAHA, the whole MAHA wellness community is massive in this country. And they all seem to share this lethal blind spot about public health, like it doesn't exist. They reduce everything to personal health and personal choice. And it's liberating, it's empowering, it's satisfying, it's appealing. And they're right just often enough to make them really, really dangerous. Hey, I want to recommend a commentator that I've stumbled across. Her name is Mina Ray, Meena Rae, Mina Ray. Maybe you've heard of her. Her TikTok account is called Notorious BGP, for Brown Girl Pride, BGP. And it finds its way onto other platforms, of course, as they do. Her commentary focuses on indigenous rights, on land return, generally left content. She talks about decolonization, critiques politics and economics. Now, this is kind of a soft recommendation because I only just discovered her. But, you come across dozens, hundreds of people commenting, and she kind of stopped me in my tracks. And even though I've only seen a couple of her posts, I want to recommend her. Again, Mina Ray, Notorious BGP. Because, well, what I always love to discover is someone who's better than I am at saying what I'm trying to say. I've been preaching from the same sermon now for many years, and it's about borders and money and all the things that just don't work. But especially the whole idea of money and transaction. And she talks about indigenous economics, indigenous politics, and that's communal. You give to the community what you're able, and you take what you need. And she just lays it out so beautifully. And from what I've seen, appears to be well educated in indigenous history and culture, and is able to express the ideas of a moneyless pre-colonial society. And it's so much better than what I've been trying to give you. I'm really looking forward to finding more of her work. Mina Ray. Okay, so the big midweek headlines, all from China. And every story, every headline, every piece of video, every photograph I saw in the news coverage made me more convinced with every minute that the way we organize the world is just so ridiculous. And it's portrayed as, so serious and so high stakes, a phrase they love to use, as they talk about literal nonsense. It's how many angels can dance on the head of a pin, because they're arguing about fantasies, things that don't really exist in nature, in the real world. They only exist in the twisted minds of depraved men. The very notion of the nation state, of borders, an invention that's brought us nothing but heartache. Arguing about Taiwan, another invention from the victors of World War II, as they carved up the globe, drew their borders on their maps, brought their fantastic ideas, and created this template out of whole cloth that for the next century we just had to live under. These silly, silly rules from these silly, silly men. And now on this trip, the American fascist visits communist China with all of his billionaire buddies and oligarchs alongside. They are the ones representing a world power, something in itself that should not exist in a just world. Why do we have a world power or two world powers? None of this is natural. It's decidedly unnatural. And it's all transactions. That's all life is. That's all a nation represents. We want to sell you our jets and our beef and our beans and our computer chips. And all the pomp, all the pageantry, relics of another age. It's embarrassing. Are you embarrassed that these things still exist in our world in 2026? I had to laugh at the military precision of these guys in China, because thinking it was just about a year ago now, when the Orange Menace had his military parade, and the marching, remember we talked about it, it was so sloppy. They were out of step, they were slumping, and I remember speculating at the time, that had to be intentional. That had to be the soldiers themselves displaying their disdain for the Orange Menace. There's no way they could be that out of step, that imprecise. Well, after you and I speculated about that, there were articles written about that very thing. That, yes, you saw that right. And yeah, it was probably intentional. And this just reminded me, because If you saw any of the video, the precision of these Chinese military guys, that's what military personnel are capable of. And I'm certain that our guys are just as capable. Anyway, that's the one smile I got out of this. Oh my God, and the children. Talk about precision. The precision cheering and singing and jumping and dancing and the whole Chinese children thing. I visited China many years ago, and they took us on a tour, and they took us to one of these children's schools, and then were treated to a concert by these little tiny kids playing the most difficult classical music you've ever heard. You know, you get this little waif of a child, 4 feet tall, her feet barely reaching the pedals of the piano, and she's knocking out Chopin and Mozart. And they showed us the school, and they kind of described the curriculum and the kids' daily schedules. Man, they're drilled. Chosen from an early age. I remember just being dumbfounded by the whole thing and just disgusted. I remember a lot of the other people on the tour around me, other Americans, just being so impressed. Oh, look at this. Look at how great they are. What are you talking about? What are these kids going through? The authoritarian nature of China, I don't know, it gets lost. Because people think, look at those acrobats. Look at those child prodigies. Aren't they wonderful? It's weird. And the fact that the Orange Menace just loves it. He loves the authoritarians. Of course he does. Of course, in some ways, China is more democratic than we are, especially today. At least their government keeps their billionaires under control. They don't have oligarchs like we do. Yeah, they have billionaires, but they don't run the country. They don't run the government. It's the other way around. And they do have local democracy. They've got their local committees. There's absolutely some of that. But the iron-fisted rule from the top? Yeah, the Orange Menace just loves that. He envies it. Talks about Xi like he's an example to the world. How much he loves him. How much he claims to be friends with him. He rules 1.5 billion people. He loves to use words like rule or runs a country. He always uses that expression. He runs a country of 1.5 billion people. Wow, boy, that's impressive. He says that about himself. I'm busy running the country. You don't run the country. That's not how this works. So this whole China trip is, for me, just more confirmation that the way we've got things organized, with the nation states, with the hard borders, with money and profit being at the center of everything, with all of life being transactional. It's all about the deals. With the people just apparently shut out entirely. I mean, you look at this massive conference table, each delegation like a couple of dozen people on each side of the table. All men, by the way. 100% of the at least 50 plus people in that room, all men on both sides of the table. On our side, all white men, even though they're supposed to be representing a multicultural, multi-ethnic, multiracial country. 25 white men, mostly older white men, especially the boss, a really, really old white man. So I'm not sure which country is more democratic at this point. And now I guess we hate democracies. Our government officials never have anything good to say about the countries of Europe anymore, of Canada, of Ukraine, which is doing its best to be a fledgling democracy after years of corruption. Oh, but they love Xi. They use the word communist like it's a dirty word when they're talking about political opponents here at home, but don't seem to mind that, I guess the Chinese Communist Party, I guess they're the good communists because they like to make money. And they've got something we can use. I suppose if Cuba had oil or rare earth minerals or cheap labor that we could exploit, I guess maybe we'd love them too. No, we sanction them. To the point now, I just saw a headline today. Cuba says oil and diesel supplies have run dry because of U.S. sanctions. You and I have talked about this. That's an international crime against humanity. when you're intentionally harming the civilian population of another nation. It's a war crime. You go to The Hague for that. You stand trial, and then you go to jail. That's a crime. It's an international crime against humanity to use sanctions to inflict pain and even death on civilian populations in order to get political concessions. It's a crime. Oh, but Cuba is communist. It's a dictatorship. They don't give a damn about that. They love Israel. Israel's not a democracy anymore. That was always the big reason for the support. Oh, well, they're the one great standing democracy in the Middle East. Well, that's long gone. They're an ethno-nationalist apartheid regime with an authoritarian leader who, by the way, here's another headline, suing the New York Times over that article on sexual abuse of Palestinian prisoners. Yeah, you know about that, right? Nicholas Kristof, New York Times expose on the torture and sexual abuse of Palestinian prisoners. Apparently they've trained, and I can't even say this out loud. They've trained dogs to rape people. That's how depraved and disgusting the leadership of Israel is right now, and their military. Oh, but they're our best friends. We have a special relationship. So all the pomp and pageantry and old men in blue suits sitting across from each other, wheeling and dealing with the riches of the world, while the 99.99% of the world's population just wants to live with each other in peace. You and I and all the rest of that 99% have everything in common with each other and nothing in common with these sick and twisted men in high places. The China trip and the video and the images coming from it are just a sad, sad reminder of what the world has come to. Doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't. So, we look to generations past for inspiration. We look to future generations with a sense of responsibility. And we get up tomorrow and we keep up the fight. All right. This and all episodes can be heard at the website charlespurcell.com or on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks to our flagship terrestrial station, River West Radio in Milwaukee. Follow us on Blue Sky and Substack. Peter Donalds wrote and performed our theme song. Thanks for listening. I love you. I'll see you out there.